So this is just a few care and maintenance tips to keeping your Chameleon pens perfect for many years to come. Now, as you know, the Chameleon pens are refillable and all the nibs are replaceable. That is, we have replacement nibs for the brush tip, the bullet tip, and the mixing chamber tip as well. So, you know, as with any good art tool, if you treat them with a little bit of love and care, you should have these for a very long time. But there are two key troubleshooting rules that you really want to follow when you're using your Chameleon pens. And number one is that you have to let gravity work with you. It's a simple system. That's how it works. So you basically have your mixing chamber and your pen itself. And what you want to do, whether it's a bullet or the brush nib, is you want to let gravity work for you. So mixing chamber on top, or the blending will stop. That's a simple way that I always remember it. Just make sure that your nibs are touching, and that way it'll transfer the toning medium into the color of the pen. So now what'll happen is you're fusing the solution down. Now if you put it this way, gravity, it's not working with you. If you do it this way, gravity is working against you. You're actually putting color into your mixing chamber nib. You really don't want to do that. So remember, mixing chamber on top or the blending will stop. So now that's allowed me to get this really nice, very high light sort of blue-green that I've got here. So I'm going from a light hint of a tint. I'm working into my mid-tones. That was a pretty long fuse, but this gives me a little bit of depth and dimension into my darker shades. So you can do that, a nice color gradation, a beautiful blend, all with one pen. And that's the wonderful part about Chameleon pens, is you can get so many color tones out of that one pen. So rule number one we want to remember is to always leave the mixing chamber on top and let gravity work with you, not against you. Rule number two, okay, you never want to leave your pen in a stored position. See, what's happening is, as long as those two nibs are touching, as long as that's happening, they're wicking the color back and forth, and you're contaminating your nib. So if you have to put it down for a second, that's fine. Just, you can put it down like that. It is alcohol ink, so alcohol inks do evaporate, but it's not going to all evaporate in a minute or two of leaving the cap off. So, you know, in the middle of coloring, if you want to be able to just put the pen down like that, that's fine. You know, obviously it's best if you can recap it. Always recap your pens. Alcohol inks have a nice tight lid because you want it to be airtight. So just don't leave your pens in a fused position, because, you know, even though gravity's not working with you, it is actually still wicking some of the color, and it will go that way. So what'll happen is you may come back maybe a few minutes later, it could be a few hours later, and you may find that you have color on your mixing chamber nib. Now, it's usually, if you catch it fairly quickly, it's not a bad situation at all, because you just, again, put the mixing chamber on top, and the toning medium will actually flush the mixing chamber nib right out. And that way you'll get the color will come right off of it. So the system will clean itself to a certain extent, and you'll just color the colorless toning medium out, and it'll come back to the color of the marker pen. Now, in extreme cases, if you came back, you know, hours later and this entire tip was completely saturated with color, then I would usually suggest trying, you know, you can try flushing it out. One of the simpler ways to do it would be to just replace your mixing chamber nib, and you just do that by simply pulling it out and putting the new nib inside there. So that's another way to do it. If you happen to come back and maybe you left it overnight, you may have found that the ink had gone all the way into the mixing chamber, and at that point in time there's really not a lot you can do, so you will need to replace that pen. So just care and maintenance, basic things. You don't leave your caps off. Always use the system the way it's intended, with the mixing chamber on top, and the caps are a tight, airtight fit, and the cap to the mixing chamber is actually the pen itself. So you'll find that it just snaps on. So if you heard that, that's the mixing chamber sealing that. So that's airtight what you've got here. So that's your complete piece, and that's how you want to store your pens. You'll notice that I don't have any nibs touching here. My cap is on my pen on both sides, and I'm capping off my mixing chamber. The pen itself is actually the cap. So again, with a little bit of care and maintenance and using the pens correctly, you'll have them for a lot of years to come.